It's essentially taking the whole generation so far for Atlas and Nintendo to put this together, but it's finally here. And goodness gracious, did Shin Megami Tensei V live up to the hype for me? This was one of the first games ever announced for the Nintendo Switch platform back in January of 2017. It's been so long, and I felt there was always something. I knew this game was going to come out. I didn't really listen to all of the noise surrounding the delays or surrounding them being silent about it. I knew that they were just creating something spectacular, a full, true, multiple gen jump from what they had on Shin Megami Tensei 4 to Shin Megami Tensei 5, and it's going to take the time, effort, care, and love, especially with a new hybrid platform like the Nintendo Switch. And I am extremely proud to tell you guys that they delivered on this one. Atlas knocked it out of the park. Now, this is going to be a pseudo no spoiler review, no spoilers though. Did I say no spoilers? Yeah, I said no spoilers when it comes to footage or content, just to make sure that everybody knows that. And where I'm just going to be rambling in a very cohesive, somewhat scripted manner on how much I love Shin Megami Tensei V. And I wanted to do a video like this because it's hard to kind of put together sometimes when you play a game and you just feel this natural relationship to it when it comes to the controls, the gameplay, the graphics, everything that it does, and it just gels. It feels like you're in the zone, right? Like if you're playing basketball and you just keep on making swishes, or if you're in the zone with tennis or golf or anything else that you've done, right? You just can't miss, you can't really make a bad play. And I think that's kind of how I feel in my element when I'm playing Shin Megami Tensei V, and especially with the hybrid nature of Nintendo Switch, it makes it easier than ever to hop in, hop out, play this game as a long, big RPG. Because I'm going to break down kind of all the little different things here, and I said no spoiler, right? Yeah, no spoiler. When it comes to what I love about each faction of the gameplay, there's going to be 4 of them here. We have story, presentation, graphics, and gameplay. So let's go ahead and jump into it here. And we're starting off with the story. Me, I'm more of a hands-off but impactful type of person. So I don't want story interrupting me every single 2 seconds in a game. And obviously I'm exaggerating a little bit there with every single 2 seconds, but I don't want story and events always interrupting me. I like to free flow into it. And that's where Shin Megami Tensei, in my opinion, really just takes off. Now, I'm 60 hours into the game, but I'm not 60 hours into the game because I'm playing the game on hard mode, and I'm making sure that I don't get destroyed, because that's the thing about this game. When it comes to the gameplay, which we'll talk about more, they have varying levels. And man, on hard mode, there is some stuff. So I'm 60 hours in, but I'm not actually 60 hours into the gameplay when it comes to the story and all of that. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but from what I've seen so far, and from what I've experienced with the boss battles that I've played and some of the cutscenes and the voice acting, everything seems to be intriguing. It seems to be interesting. It seems to have some different types of angles. You might not be able to trust certain people. They have certain powers that you didn't think that they would have when you first met them. So there's a lot of different things that kind of fall in line with the Mega 10 type of story. Although things are just a bit different because of how it's being presented to you in the story and what happens with the fusion of just your normal student, or at least it seems at this point, and a essential demigod when it comes to Aogami. Fusing, big problems happen in Tokyo, something happens, and then things just kind of go to hell from there. But I like the story so far. I like the approach to where they just kind of say, hey, here's a cutscene. It's not super long, doesn't have a bunch of talking all the way through, and then they get you right back into the gameplay. Then you head to somewhere, then there's something else where you have to talk to some people, and then you head back into it. You can kind of take your time talking to other people, you know, in certain towns and in certain areas, or even talking to demons as well. So the story plays out, and the narrative is very well done in my opinion, and I don't want to spoil anything so far when it comes to the story, but I like it. Now, I haven't finished the game, that's why this is more of a pseudo review, but I do like the story so far from what I've seen. Now, next up is presentation. This is the UI, this is the music, this is how they all package it up and make it look nice and sparkly for the gamers out there, and this is well done. The music, if you're talking about music in Mega 10, man, you can argue all day when it comes to music in Mega 10 games and which one is the best and what do you like more. But for me, I've always loved SMT3. I think SMT3 music is awesome, and I've loved SMT4. Those two to me have been kind of the top SMT music games, and I would say that SMT5 definitely fits somewhere in that whole mash. I think it's just dependent on what you personally like, but for me, it's somewhere in there. But I haven't listened to all the tunes in the game, so I don't know everything. But once I get through everything, then I can go back over it with a fine-tooth comb, because I've listened to SMT3 and SMT4 soundtrack like a million times. But I can say that the music is top-notch. It's quality. It sounds fantastic on the Nintendo Switch OLED, and if you've got a surround sound system, at least from what I can hear. Now, of course, you know, some people are better audiophiles than me and maybe know a bit more. Might be different for you guys, but for me, it sounds pretty good. The quality seems pretty good from what I have set up in my place. Now, next up, the UI. Now, obviously, if you've played Tokyo Mirage Sessions, you might recognize this UI, and yes, I like it. Tokyo Mirage Sessions to me is a very good UI. It was very slick, very neat, very, I would just say, prompt, where you know exactly where you're going to go. You're never fumbling with the controls and what to do, and I do like that because it lets you easily see the weaknesses, the details, what you need to do, examine your team, examine the other team, examine what you need to do, who you can put out there. It's really well done, especially when you're trying to play some of the harder battles, or if you forget what's weak and the resistances and all that. It's all up right there for you to understand and to recognize, so you don't make that crucial mistake. And that's what presentation and UI is for, is to making sure that you don't bumble around with the menus or bumble around with what's going on that gets in the way of the actual gameplay. And also how they do the presentation with the cutscenes and how they kind of put everything together with the on-screen graphics and what they display. Everything is just done very well in this game. I love the presentation in Shin Megami Tensei V. Next up, let's move into the graphics, and then we'll finish off with the gameplay. So in my opinion, Shin Megami Tensei V is one of the best looking games on the Nintendo Switch, and easily one of the best looking RPGs slash JRPGs on the platform. It has a nice, vibrant look to it. There's a lot of different environments with really good colors. I love the scheme of Nahabino and how the light blue filtering through his body with the dark blue. The demons are nice and colorful and detailed as well. The worlds are really nice and vibrant with the colors. I'm playing it on my LG CX OLED TV and also on my Nintendo Switch OLED, and the game just pops from the menu screens all the way to the UIs and the fonts. The graphics in this game are absolutely beautiful. I love what they've done. They spent a lot of time crafting the different demons in this game, crafting the environments, crafting the world to just kind of scope and mesh and all blend together in a very visually pleasing experience. However, there are a few oddities that I did notice. Well, one, there's some pop-ups. So when you're running through certain environments, there will be some pop-up when it comes to grass or certain types of objects in the environment. And then also, it does seem like the demons do move at a lower frame rate the farther that they are away from the main character. Then as you get closer to them, they will smooth out and run in the frame rate. Now, it doesn't affect the actual frame rate of the game, so you're not moving at a slower frame rate, or the game isn't moving slower. It's just the demon there. Plus, there is some areas where there's a lot of traffic where you might experience a few frames in terms of slowdown, but it's nothing that really inhibited the gameplay for me. And most of the time when I was playing the game, it ran extremely smooth, especially after the 1.0.1 update that launched right around the time of the Japanese release of the game. Everything's been fairly smooth, especially after that patch. There was some issues beforehand, but it does seem like some of those were smoothed out. So my experience with the frame rate and the graphics was good, with the exception of a few of those things that I did mention with the demons frame rate when they're further away from you, how they animate on the screen, and also some of the heavier condensed areas, in addition to some of the oddities within the pop-in. Now, some of the textures too on the cars can be a little bit low type of res. It doesn't look that great, but overall, if you compare it to any other of the Nintendo Switch JRPGs RPGs out there. It pretty much blows away most of them. To me, this is one of the most visually appealing game, and it doesn't just mean with graphics or the resolution, but also with the art in the game, how it's drawn, how it's animated, how it looks. It all just gels and flows to make one of the best looking games on the system, hands down. Moving into the gameplay, and I think that this is where Shin Megami Tensei V really just knocks it out of the park, especially when you combine everything else that this game does. Did I say knock it out of the park? I meant to say knock it out of the stratosphere again on this one here. The gameplay in Shin Megami Tensei V is absolutely addicting. It's essentially take a Pokemon game, more like a mature themed Pokemon game, where you capture up demons and getting them to join your team in various different types of ways. You have to talk to them, bribe them to join your team. Then once they're on there, you can utilize all their skills and talents, level them up. And then if you don't have any more use for them, you can actually fuse them with a different demon to create a new, more powerful demon. And even later, once you start leveling up a bit and getting a few different abilities, you can actually carry over stats, carry over more moves, and carry over different things. It just gets better and better. And that unique flow of capturing and fusing, then learning from different ones and just repeating that hook, in addition to finding new demons, capturing new ones, whether you're out there just fighting or whether you do it through fusion, special fusions, different types of things. It all just works well and creates this extremely addicting gameplay flow. And the signature gameplay of this series, and that's the momentum-based gameplay. You have various different types of attacks that you can do that are based off of affinities, like electricity and also ice and fire. And if you hit the enemy with a weakness, what that's going to do is it's going to give you an extra turn and do more damage as a critical hit. So from there, you can just take advantage of the momentum and just pile on the hurt on bosses, on enemies, and more. And it creates a strategic gameplay flow that really no other game I've experienced on the Nintendo Switch outside of like Xenoblade Chronicles and some of those titles. The flow in Shin Megami Tensei V is absolutely incredible, and it's easily the best thing about the game and what I love the most about it. The combat is just there. It hits just right, and there's so much depth and so many different things to explore. You're always going to be thinking about your next demon fusion. You're always going to be thinking about what the next attack is going to be. You're always going to be thinking about, how am I going to get an extra turn? How am I going to take advantage of this boss? How am I going to make sure that I protect myself? How am I going to make sure that my main character doesn't die? How am I going to make sure that this goes right in my favor? What am I going to do to talk to this demon in order to get him on my team? What am I going to do to make sure that I can power up and beat this side quest? There's always something. There's always ways to get better. There's always ways to level up. There's always ways to build your character in the way that you want to build them anytime that you level up, getting extra experience or more like talent acquisition points to where you can build your character the way that you want to, and also even level up your demons the way that they want to by beating these signature enemies and getting different items to power them up. So this game has depth, it has range, there's different stuff to do with it. When you meld that graphics that I talked about with the signature Mega 10 gameplay and the addictiveness of it, it really just creates that perfect gameplay style, that perfect RPG. And when you're looking at it when it comes to the system itself on the Nintendo Switch, this type of gameplay with the turn-based combat fits exactly what the system was built for. Being able to do demon fusion if you want to just lie down in bed and get that type of stuff done, or if you're somewhere else, the turn-based combat, it's not something to where you have to be sitting there and attentive to it and play in an action sense. So it really fits the Nintendo Switch if you want to play portably on that screen or play on the TV as a long RPG. So for me, it actually makes me be able to play the game even more and like it even more, as it immerses me inside of this huge world of that and going around and fighting these enemies and seeing them on there all of these upgrades and additions to the Mega 10 series, which hasn't been before, where you actually see the enemy that's going to be in the battle. Sometimes different enemies come, but the enemy that you see out there is the one that you're going to fight, is a revelation for the series. It makes it a lot better to play and creates a much more interesting gameplay style to me in any of the previous Shin Megami Tensei games, as you often don't know who the demon's going to be, as it's like a default generic avatar or little type of graphics looking thing, and then you find out who the demons are then and there. It's really nice, and one of the best additions that they actually made it to where you can see the demons on there, and from that point it's all downhill and fun, doing the different skills that the Naobino has, and how they animate everything graphically is just incredibly impressive. I am so impressed with how everything looks on the screen as you're tearing up enemies with the momentum based system. The gameplay is just gold. It's just gold. It hits right. It feels good to play, and obviously one of the best things about the game. So those are my impressions of Shin Megami Tensei V. I think that it's a must-play Nintendo Switch game. I highly recommend it, and Atlus has done an incredible job creating an RPG built for the Nintendo Switch. So what are your thoughts when it comes to Shin Megami Tensei V? Let me know in the comment section below. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.